Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Kaleidoscope. I apologize for the misstart or the misfire to our episode, but this is how it works right now because of all the tech stuff that has to happen in house. This is the best we can do. I appreciate your patience. Of course, we are back with the Sunday Club with three of our panelists, Suhel Seth, Ratan Sharda, and Abhijit Iyer-Mitra. Shruti Vedya unfortunately could not join us today. She had to cancel at the last moment because she isn't keeping too well. But hopefully she'll be back with us very, very soon. And, we'll get back to doing what we do, which is talking. This past week, of course, has been interesting. I'd like to start with some good news. The new Covishield vaccine, according to a study done in the United Kingdom, has found to be effective after 2 doses when it comes to the B.17 variant, which we're finding in India right now. This is highly transmissible. And it is really what has pushed our second wave in the way that it has. But the Covishield vaccine post 2 doses is supposed to be good and effective, and it stands up to this variant. So that's some really good news. It essentially means that more of us get vaccinated, we get closer to being back to normal. And now on to the topics of the day. We have a couple of topics that we really want to discuss that have taken place during the week. A lot of you have sent us suggestions as well. One in particular was, of course, about the way history is taught to children in school, and the emphasis that is laid on certain aspects and certain times or periods of history, whilst others are ignored. I do want to say that I make note of that, and we'll come back with a panel on that as well, of preferably people who are from the education field, and discuss it with the gravity that it needs to be discussed with. But anyway, back to today, and let's start.
Advaita, you mean that Abhijit is not a serious person on history?
No, I wasn't even talking about Abhijit. It was just my.
You said you'll get a new panel, so none of us is fit to talk about history.
I am almost half a century old, and I look like that illustration of Ozymandias in my CBSE textbook. So I think I would pass off quite well as a historical figure myself.
Today is just a jinx day because I seem to have, now upset my channel as well. I mean, my panelists as well. So that's terrible. But coming back to the topic of the day, the first one that we're going to discuss is really the government of India versus Twitter. Just who is manipulating whom? Because it seems that senior spokesperson Sanbit Patra's tweet was marked as manipulated media on Twitter, and that was when it came to the toolkit, the famous toolkit that we discussed recently, or rather the infamous toolkit. And Government of India then went on to issue some sort of notification asking them to take down tweets that said Indian variant, which will really lead us into our next conversation, which is Kejriwal versus the Singaporeans. This was something else that exploded this week. But let's start with GOI versus Twitter. And Abhijit, I'm going to start with you because I know that you take a really hard stand on how Twitter is kind of so biased. And in fact, Himanta Biswa Sarma about 4 hours ago went on to say that Twitter picking sides, I think that's the most obvious thing that has been said by anyone in government, that Twitter is political and picking sides. So Abhijit, this is something we know already.
Twitter has picked sides for a very long time. Notice how people like Aisha Ghosh, Sheila Rashid, Umar Khalid, they all started getting their blue ticks within 2-3 days of them becoming famous on for whatever the Tukde slogans and all of that. Remember, Sheila Rashid also had a previous Twitter account which was suspended, and in violation of Twitter rules, she was brought back on Twitter and then given a blue tick within days. So they have gone to any extent to platform and blue tick anti-government voices. And this has been happening for a very, very long time. All right. Even their classification of hate speech and things like that is determined by D-grade vokes, otherwise unemployable. Normally they would have found jobs as jhadu pochawalas. And, in that sense, setting algorithms for things like this is the job of ex-jhadu pochawalas. So when you have jhadu pochawalas running algorithms, this is what you end up getting. That sense of gripe and this thing to take down any established narrative. Number one. Number two, these people have consistently since their entry into India, been in violation of the intermediary guidelines that they operate in under India. And it tells you about the pusillanimity and lack of spine of the government of India, that even after all that happened during the farmers' riots and things like that, where Twitter was actively encouraging people to go rioting, promoting this kind of narrative without cracking down on it, direct incitement to violence, even when they shut down Trump's Twitter account for no direct incitement to violence. They refused to obey the government of India. And in spite of that, the government of India only gave them new guidelines. They didn't even set up laws. And the Supreme Court had to throw it back at the government of India's face and then say, you come up with laws. No more of these guidelines. Right? So this has been a systematic pattern. Twitter is the new East India Company. If information is the new gold, then Twitter is the new East India Company. All right. And this is a standard case of what they're doing, that even after the government has told them that your processes can't, go over forensic analysis, that some alt news runs some con job of a fact check. You base your, this is manipulated information based on that without allowing for forensic testing and things like that, which is now the subject of an Indian court. These buggers think that they are higher than an Indian court. And what does the government of India do? Absolutely nothing. Right? So this is a classic case of a foreign interloper hell-bent on mischief, trying to undermine democratic processes, just like they did in America, trying to do that in India, and getting away with a weak, useless government that is so desperate for approval for the white. They are more for alleged Hindu nationalists. The only approval you should seek is that of your own people. These people seek the white man's approval more than a bloody golden retriever or a Labrador does.
You're very angry today, Abhijit. Very, very angry. Yeah, because
yes.
I know you come down hard on this, and it's happened many, many times. Even in the present time, Sharjeel Usman, the ex-AMU leader, student leader, and that horrible tweet that he made about Jai Shri Ram being
he hasn't even been banned.
Yes.
Kangana Ranaut got taken down.
Not even suspended or anything.
Not even suspended, taken down. And Sharjeel Usman is still there with his blue tick and everything, running the show out there, grandstanding out there.
It's so obvious, I mean, the kind of hate speech will get one account banned, but another will kind of stay on.
You remember during the Delhi riots, there was this guy, Shah Rukh Khan, who aimed the gun at the policeman, that very famous image. There was a blue tick account that said, I salute Shah Rukh Khan for standing up to tyranny.
No, I mean, that also, those riots, there was so much mobilization that went on through social media.
Twitter was an element of the riots. Do you remember the London BlackBerry riots, where BlackBerry BBM was used to mobilize the crowd that went on riots? This was a Twitter riot. Remember, Twitter took great pride in mobilizing Tahrir Square against Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. They have openly aided and abetted insurrection in the past. And this is what really worries me about this government. Is it stupid? Is it so racked with inferiority complex? Or is it compromised?
Because even the French, Macron has come out and spoken along these lines. There was some murmurs in Germany as well. Sudan, right before its election, also commented on Twitter's partisan and political interference, to put it plainly. Ratan Sharda ji, your comments on this particular situation that's been ongoing for a long time.
Yeah, Abhijit has Abhijit has already covered the ground around Twitter. Let me get a little deeper into this, which people should know. When Trump was banned, I had written 2 articles, one and later another one article, where I said the deep platforming of Trump is not about right or left. It is about freedom of speech of country, the sovereignty of a country. If a person, a president or ex-president, can be simply cancelled from the social media, his software, another Twitter, I don't remember the name now, lookalike, which came up in USA, was removed by Apple. Not cool, not cool.
Parler.
Yes, Parler. It was removed from Play Stores itself. So I said, this big tech is going to control the narrative of the nations. Facebook has openly admitted it has been able to manipulate USA and Indian elections. We know about Cambridge Analytica. So this power of oligarchy of these few oligarch corporations is the biggest danger to democracy and freedom of expression. Now, if tomorrow your program is not liked by YouTube, you can simply be deplatformed, finish, matter closed. You can't do a thing. So this super government over the above the normal governments is the biggest threat to the democratic parties, which you realize. Google has been fined by European Union, some billion of dollars, not small amounts. Not only that, see that temerity, they have been banned in China, but Google works for Chinese companies or Chinese government. Twitter has been banned, but it bans everything you speak against China. You are either called a provocative tweet or whatever they're called. If you say Wuhan virus, you are banned. So if this is the kind of control that China has, this is the kind of control these few big tech companies are, this is the real danger. I would rile against the government later on. My big rile is about the software giants who have made billions of dollars on labor arbitrage, which Suhel talked earlier. I have been, ranting about since I was in software way back in 96, 97, that we make billions of dollars, sit on the cash, buy some small petty companies, but you don't have heart to say, okay, take this 100 crores, make a wonderful operating system, take this 100 crores, we'll create a competition on Twitter. No, sir, we'll not do it. So we cannot blame just one person. It is our very attitude to keep on depending on the different people. If our data sits on WhatsApp in outside servers, tell me, where is our sovereignty? Where is our data sovereignty? If Google works from outside, where is our data sovereignty? If government uses Twitter to pass government orders, where is our sovereignty? We can't even have somebody saying, okay, at least for government job, we will not use foreign software. We'll use there are a lot of Indian software. There is Hike Messenger, there is Geo, there is now some more coming up. It is not difficult to make the software. The question is to market it and own it. If we can't do that, and what is government stand? They call the Twitter guy to Parliament committee, doesn't turn up, you keep quiet, you send a letter of protest. You send a letter of protest for the ruling party which has given a news. If that is the kind of attitude we have towards these foreign companies, I'm sorry. If tomorrow Twitter is shut down, what will happen? Tell me. What worse can happen?
Like TikTok was. TikTok.
So what will happen? At the most, we can't shout at each other. We can't pass comments against each other. What else will you lose? 3% of this Indian population uses Twitter and vitiates the atmosphere. And they rule over us as if they own the entire, speech and platform. That is a real danger. The big tech taking over. And if the government doesn't wake up, I can tell you 2024 election, by 23, you'll find many of these voices being stopped. But tomorrow, if Modi's, app is deplatformed, don't blame anybody else. This is the level where it can go. Trump and US government is more powerful than all of us. If European Union can take action against these big tech giants, why can't we? Why can't others? Because in USA, that is a revenue. They keep quiet. On the Chinese side, they have power and they still go and beg for work from them. And we sit nowhere. We just say, okay, ठीक है भैया, आपका software चला लेते हैं. Coup आएगा तो को पूछेगा नहीं, उसको investment मिलेगा नहीं. If our companies are found worthy of investment at Chinese, US angel funds, why do our angel funds and our venture fund companies in India do not find them attractive? Because we want to ride on somebody else's shoulder. I'll give last example. There is a very big company, hugely respected corporate leader, I will not name him, who has a venture funding company, who gives a few lakhs, okay, not millions, and says, you use my name, you'll get enough money. But you put my name. So that is the attitude that we have. So we have problem with the government vision of what the tech can do to you. We have lack of vision for so-called IT giants who don't know what they can provide from the skill we have. And we have problem for our own people who don't know what to do. So unless we protest, this will keep on happening.
So here, what kind of a noise and what does it do for India's image if the government was to take a decision like they did with TikTok? How is it going to be received internationally, and will that fuel that narrative yet?
Of course, it will fuel the narrative. Can you hear me? So here is my view on this whole thing. And it's slightly deviant from what Abhijit and Ratanji spoke about. My view is very, very clinical. If the media was manipulated, and if the toolkits were false, the BJP and the government should have had the intelligence to give evidence that, look, this is not false. We have analyzed metadata, we've done the forensics, and this is the conclusion we've come to. And based on that, they should have then sued Twitter in a court of law in Indian jurisdiction. That is what you should be doing as a civilized, sensible, democratic government. Now, the problem is that everyone takes to Twitter as if Twitter is the only place where all activity should happen. I mean, the government is only running on Twitter, it seems, because every announcement is made on Twitter. Lockdowns are extended on Twitter. I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on in this country. So there are 3 or 4 things happening. Number one, if you ban Twitter, you are no different from any dictatorship or any non-reasonable government. The comparisons internationally will immediately come to China. Although Modi loves China, I mean, he has a love and hate of relationship, you can't behave like China when you choose to and not like China when you choose to. So either you have a rigid policy saying, I will brook none of this nonsense from any platform, Indian or international. Second is that if Twitter has been doing this repeatedly, surely that 600 army of IT people or in the BJP IT cell have the wherewithal to garner evidence. That evidence should be placed before the people. Number 3, when Twitter tags Sambit Patra's tweets as manipulated media, it only fuels the fires of what I call the so-called liberals. See, these people are not liberal. They also have a dogma attached to them. So don't give them the benefit of calling them liberals. They, to my mind, are left-leaning, like just some people would be right-leaning. So, we shouldn't say, oh, but those are the liberals, and as if we are illiberal, which is a whole load of bullshit. Third, and this is an important point, Twitter must follow the law of the land. So should the government. The government cannot fight Twitter through trolls. It can fight Twitter through legal and jurisdiction and jurisprudence or judicial intervention. But again, they don't do that. When they don't do that, they further weaken their case. And the fourth point is, why do you give Twitter so much of importance? Will an election be won or lost because of Twitter? It doesn't seem so. If that was the case, BJP would have won Bengal. Obviously, they didn't. So I don't think you need to give too much of credence. And if you want to kill someone, always use a borrowed knife, as Sun Tzu famously said in The Art of War. My whole point, Advaita, is don't again start an international outrage saying, oh, now they've banned Twitter, now they've done this, because we are getting a lot of bad press. All of this points to what Abhijit started with. The government is either incompetent, inept, or incapable of governing in a crisis of this magnitude. So either the government outsources all this to someone or to some people. They hired a lobbying firm in the US, nothing happened. We're still getting a lot of stick from the New York Times, from the Washington Post, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what the government plans to do or even has a plan in place.
But should we be worried about bad publicity? Aren't we getting it anyway? Without...
That is exactly my point. They're getting so much of bad publicity. When you have multiple fires to ward off, then you've got to prioritize which is the fire you really want to douse, which will actually help people. Fighting Twitter is not important. Fighting COVID is. Giving oxygen to Indian citizens is more important than fanning the flames on Twitter. And that is something they've got to recognize. And let some other people fight Twitter. Yeah, they've got so many people. They're the goddamn government, for God's sake. So my whole point is that even, I'm telling you simple things, Advaita. Everyone is using Twitter. Ministers are using it to wish each other a happy birthday. Announcements are being made, celebrations, wedding, death, articles, corrections, clarifications, videos. I mean, there's a Twitter overload. And it seems as if the government depends only on Twitter and not on the Press Information Bureau for message dissemination. So if you're that dependent, then also have the thick skin to take the rough with the smooth. But you can't have it all your way. And I will say one thing, Twitter is a platform. Twitter is not the BJP or the Congress. Twitter doesn't have to follow your political ideology. They'll follow a political ideology of their own. Mm-hmm. If you don't like it, lump it. Yeah. And if you can't lump it and it creates a judicial fracas, then, sort it judicially.
Just two small points, Advaita. One is that when I talk about banning, I'll just give an example that worse come what happens. Otherwise, when government sends a notice or sends a letter, what is the follow-up? Have they decided that? That is a question. Like I said, there is a confusion. They should know the next step, what they're going to take. Secondly, that is the reason I didn't stick to Twitter. I talked about the entire social platform. I talked about the entire big tech issue of controlling the entire operating systems, the Play stores, everything. Paytm had to pay a heavy price that was removed by Google. So anybody can just remove all of those big giants can remove anybody. So unless you have a completely independent system, that is where I gave an example of China, not because they're banning. Because once you are firm with these people, they understand. Why did they bow before the European Union? Why did Google agree to pay billions of dollars a penalty? Because they can't live without it. So do we understand the power of India as a market, as something that they require rather than we require them? This begging attitude that we require social media, sorry, we don't require, they require us. When Facebook acts funny with any government to try to overturn, like you talked about, one of us talked about Tahrir Square, etc., then governments have to be careful and then take a step. They should see through the step. Letter bhej diya, bhaiya nahi suna, ab kya kare? Or my biggest problem is that your data goes outside India. You work through WhatsApp, your banking is through WhatsApp. Can you imagine? We have got enough platforms who can go to that particular platform. After we are going to have banking. If I want to bank with State Bank of India, I would go to any platform. I will not say I will only come on WhatsApp. So this problem is our own making. We do not understand how to manage this huge platform, which is for our own good, not our enemy.
Also, just to add very quickly,
Abhijit, Karan Nanwal is saying, I guess you guys have no idea about fake news and propaganda by Instagram and meme pages with much higher reach.
But let me just finish quickly. Advaita, let me just finish one point quickly because it's an add-on to what Ratanji and Suhel said. See, there's several things out here which we should remember. Jack Dorsey, we don't know how to use our power on Twitter. Jack Dorsey was very happy to go appear in front of the Singapore Parliament, right? But when the Indian Parliament told him to come, he said, screw you. And we are so shameless, we don't even take him to task for that. The way little Poland passes a law for banning accounts and things like that, forcing them to pay something like $1 or $2 million per day as compensation for a banned account, we don't even do that. So tell me, who is going to take a Napunsak government seriously?
Correct.
इस सरकार को तो चूड़ियां पहन के, साड़ी पहन के, घूंघट पहन के नौटंकी करना चाहिए. ये सरकार चलाने के लायक नहीं है ये लोग. ठीक है ना?
Why these gendered these things? Yeah.
So I will be gendered. I am going to be totally gendered because I'm going with, we haven't adopted this Western, this thing at all. So yes, for all its implications, that is exactly what they should do. Number two, when Suhel says, why is it important? I'll tell you why it's important. The narrative control begins with those people who control the peer review in that sense. The English press through Twitter is the peer review. They are the validation mechanism. A story always starts up in the English economic press. It then filters down to the English so-called mainstream press. And from there, it filters down to the so-called vernacular media, the regional media. And all these journalists, they look up to that English, this thing as the validation mechanism. That is why you need to haul Twitter and its management over the flame and have a carrot and stick policy. The problem is we don't even have that. And look at the
Exactly.
extent to which Twitter has compromised the government. There isn't a single discussion on data localization, net neutrality, and things like that that aren't sponsored by Twitter or Facebook, where some idiot minister or the other is coming and giving a bhashan. So you understand, every think tank that has taken money from Facebook or Twitter is not going to give you a clear, direct path of action, because even their thought process is completely compromised by the money that they're receiving. So this is how they have managed to sink the net neutrality debate. This is how they managed to sink the going past the 2003 intermediary guidelines debate. And this is how they've managed to sink the whole data localization debate. They bribe the mind. Through money, they bribe the mind, and that creates this whole mahal, so to say, where they manage to sink government policy or compromise it directly.
But you see, Advaita, when the Prime Minister goes abroad, he had celebrated visits to Facebook, celebrated visits to Google. You can't be hypocritical. On the one hand, Facebook, Evo, then Sunday. In our country, we go gaga 1 minute and then we go, I don't want to say raga, but we go completely, nuts.
Raga, no?
No, I don't want to. I mean, why bring relevant, irrelevant commodity? So my point is that either you take action. You can't have partial pregnancy. This government can't be pussyfooting on every issue. Agar dam hai, fir aap action lo. Nahi dam hai, fir chup raho. This proxy war that the government wants to play either through their Godi media or non-Godi media also doesn't work.
Yeah.
Then you follow the law, saying that, look, Sambit Patra followed a toolkit which was right, if it is right.
Yeah,
and say that now we are taking you to court. These guys know how to control and work all fronts here. They have good lawyers on their panels and all that. Then go take the legal route. Not doing anything is complicit.
Yes.
Not doing anything also suggests weakness. And both these, any government cannot function with. You can't be complicit and you cannot be weak.
And
so
I think
either Narendra Modi has to decide, or someone in the RSS or wherever the people are, they have to decide.
After
a decision has to be taken.
Notification also that this stop it.
Remind of Chandni, Abhijit.
Abhijit, I'm going to put you on a 2-minute silence thing. If you
This is Chandni.
This
is acting of Chandni.
Really, I mean, this isn't Chandni, yeah. But Suhel, the thing is that
Abhijit, it is not question of Studia, it is question of totally confused approach. That is what I said. Once you start an action, take it through.
It is weakness. It is weakness, and it is an inferiority complex. It is an inability to understand the law. It is an inability to even enact the law, leave alone enforce it. They are not even willing to enforce the guidelines that they themselves have set. ये कैसी नालायक सरकार है?
Moving on
तो फिर why even pass laws?
And I think also after they said that notification about that Indian variant, I don't know if there has been any movement on that. And that really is a good segue into our next topic of discussion, which is about how the Singaporeans reacted to Arvind Kejriwal's tweet, soliciting a travel ban for people from Singapore because of the alleged Singapore variant, which was even impacting children. And it was, it was sort of couched in very alarmist language. And this tweet was actually proved to be extremely offensive to the Singaporeans, who then went on to rebut it on multiple forums. They said they invited our High Commissioner in Singapore, but what they essentially did was summon him. Their foreign minister had something very harsh to say about Arvind Kejriwal, as well as, citizens, bloggers, YouTubers, people who are part of public discourse there had a lot of things to say. And frankly, it was extremely embarrassing. Eventually, the Ministry of External Affairs had to issue a tweet and a clarification saying that Chief Minister Kejriwal does not speak for India, and that must be noted. And really, this is where it stood at. Ideally, Mr. Kejriwal should have apologized to the Singaporeans because, they have really stood by us. and sent us oxygen concentrators and all of those kind of things, and have been a good friend to India. A lot of Indians live and work there. And the last thing we need is any kind of backlash for our people who are in these countries. And lastly, really what I want to say, and which was highlighted through their response, government as well as civil, was the fact that in India, we take pride and take pot shots by saying Indian variant or Modi variant or whatever you want to call it. But Singapore really showed us how seriously countries take this kind of casual referencing. And I think there's a lot we can learn from them when it comes to this. And Suhel wanted to come in, so I'm going to start with him.
So I have 2 or 3 things to say on this, and I've said this before on a national television channel. Arvind Kejriwal was an irresponsible, ignorant ignoramus who shot his mouth off, but he's always been doing that. So don't be surprised if an idiot behaves like an idiot, because what else do you expect him to behave like? But I thought Jaishankar's response again on Twitter was equally stupid. You don't throw an elected chief minister of a state in the Union of India under the bus. You always protect your own, because today it's happened to Arvind Kejriwal, who's not from the BJP. Tomorrow Yogi Adityanath will say something. These guys will go into a tizzy if a Singaporean High Commissioner comments. And the Singapore High Commissioner did comment. He's saying, oh, we don't take Arvind Kejriwal seriously and we think he was wrong. My whole thing is, Arvind Kejriwal screwed up big time. He was stupid, he was out of his depth, and it was way above his pay grade. The response of the MEA should have been terse. The Ministry of External Affairs has always been and will always stand for India-Singapore friendship. Any comments that are misplaced, unwarranted, or unfactual may kindly be ignored. You will still tell the people that Arvind Kejriwal ko ignore karo. Now, what did you do? You got all the BJP ministers to abuse Kejriwal. What did he do? He got Manish Sisodia, who put a brilliant political spin. He says, Modi wants to save friendship with Singapore. We want to save our children. I mean, sometimes, Advaita, I don't know, these are supposed to be bright people. But now I'm getting the impression that actually they are not bright at all. Because any bacha kacha can tell you, ki, bhai, this is the way to go forward. Never get into a fight with a pig. You get dirty and the pig enjoys it.
But, this is
unnecessary snafu.
But it's classic, political speak in terms of distancing yourself from a comment that you don't think reflects the country's position. Now, this was something that was between governments. It really wasn't about, Suhel Seth or me or someone else saying something. This was
when Modi was ostensibly refused a US visa, many Congress chief ministers used to comment saying USA has done a good job, someone has done a good job here. So people have been commenting way beyond their pay grade. I'm not talking about the past. Forget the past. Today, we are in a global pandemic situation. Singapore has been and will remain a valued friend. They were the first on April 25. The first cryogenic tankers came from Singapore. They didn't come from anywhere else. They certainly didn't come from Kejriwal's backyard in civil lines. But Kejriwal is using this to score political brownie points. You have to change the battleground. If you continue to argue with him on the political front, his response was exactly what Manish Sisodia said. That, look, I'm worried about our children. These guys are worried about relationships with Singapore. And by the way, why should Kejriwal care? He's been in government. He knows what his responsibilities are. This was a provocative, needlessly political remark which he shouldn't have made. But then he's been known to be stupid in the past.
Ratan Sharda ji, I think the other point which I raised was also the Singaporean reaction to this. The fact that, they took great offense that this was referred to as the Singapore variant. Whereas in India, we have people for political reasons harping on and on about the Indian variant and taking some sort of delight also in sharing this news as the Indian variant, not only just ordinary social media users, but today there was a headline in one of the newspapers from the South, which said Indian variant in its bold font. So, it's not only just individuals, but even media houses who think that they are in opposition to the government of India, and they very well might be. But should we be selling the country down the drain because you don't like the government at the center?
See, Advaita, Singapore government did what every country with some sense of pride does. And unfortunately, our politicians brought on the left liberal, so-called illiberal and left standards where they believe more in international than in national. They have behaved like this. They have no sense of pride for India because that has what been drilled into our head also. So this sense of inadequacy about the nation makes them behave like when they want to oppose Modi, they end up opposing India. Point one. Point two, Arvind Kejriwal is not stupid. He's cynical, the most cynical, vicious politician you have seen in last 77 years. He is beyond VP Singh. I don't consider VP Singh as a very good prime minister. He was one of the most cynical person, a very ambitious person who did whatever he wanted to do to keep his seat. Arvind is the same kind. Let me go a little bit about his background because many people do not know now. Many people do not know. He stayed in Delhi as an IRS officer beyond any limit because every officer gets transferred. By one of the letter that was moving at that time was that even Sonia Gandhi recommended this guy should not be transferred. So he has been able to move his way in the government. He got Magsaysay awards within 6 months of starting his so-called NGO. Tell me what is the standard of the award and why did he get it? So there is connections. Third, when he brought Anna Hazare, it was purely a game because he was not getting the attention. He wanted to hog the limelight for RTI. He did not get it. It's in print. What am I reminding people? He went all the way to Anna Hazare, who was sitting very quietly like but good old man in a village doing wonderful job. He found attention very attractive. He came here and he was fooled. He said, politics mein nahi jana. He said, main bachchon ki kasam khata hu, politician mein nahi jaunga. There is a book by Mayank Gandhi. If you have not read, you should read it, which I have reviewed also. Very clearly says he resigned. AAP in 2015 AAP was at the peak of its popularity. He saw totally ambitious, megalomaniac person whom every good person left. Others kept on waiting for others to behave, and one by one people left. So what is now a small cabal there? And whom is he serving? The entire opposition line of thought is same. He is using the same line. Why did he speak like this? Do you understand? Because the entire line of not having hospitals in Delhi, which was supposed to make, claiming oxygen beyond his limit. When there was audit, immediately said, "Mere paas oxygen bahut hai ji." From where did oxygen come? Because he realized he will be caught. To take
that
away
was
the
odd,
attention
actually.
from his
As soon as the audit was announced, there was suddenly
exactly.
surplus oxygen.
So to take away the attention from the people for his own failing as a chief minister or mayor of superannuated mayor of Delhi, he made these excuses. That is the reason he created this. Then they went and talked about the UK. So let us understand the level of this person. We should not, what he's doing is trying to raise his level to Prime Minister Modi and the government of India. So for the government to react so strongly to him was not a very good idea. We should understand the nature of the person. If 100 politicians are put together to take out the juice and create a new person, you will find Arvind Kejriwal. That is his level of smartness. I would not use very strong words. I would call it smartness to avoid any kind of worse language. But that is the kind of politician who has done more harm just in one particular city than anybody can do even in a big state. Even Mamta is no match for him. So once we understand this and understand the level, we should not go to the level like Suhel said. We should not go to that level, but we should be very clear. Don't give too much importance. Let him rot in what he has done worse for Delhi.
I don't understand why you all are being critical of the government response. The government had to respond.
I said it was over. Advaita, what I said was overreaction. What I said was overreaction. Exactly. One simple statement killed the man's idea. Just move ahead. That's what I said.
So Advaita, if I can add, see, the analogy to be used here is that, have you watched that movie with Reese Witherspoon, Legally Blonde? That plays to all the blonde stereotypes and bimbo stereotypes.
Like you're playing to female stereotypes.
Exactly. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Yes. See, you've got a Brahminical male patriarchal audience. All your three panelists are Brahminical male patriarchs. So I will perpetuate the Brahminical male patriarchy on this panel. So let's take this legally blonde, this sort of blonde bimbo stereotype that people have. It applies absolutely to the BJP government that we have and this delusion of so-called smart people in this BJP government. Let me tell you why. Do you remember when the visa restrictions were imposed on Modi? Congress leaders said all kind of things welcoming that move, but the government condemned it. The government officially condemned it because the thing was, if these guys put a visa restriction on an elected official of the Indian state, that principle can then be applied to everybody else. There was a reason that the Congress did that. Of course, they negated it with their leaders. But see, the leaders are talking in the private capacity. They're not talking as an official of the government of India. Now, Jai Shankar, who everybody seems to think is some Vishwaguru type person, who I've never had any respect for anyway, has committed the cardinal sin of using his official Twitter account to throw Arvind Kejriwal under the bus. I'm not even going to get into what Arvind Kejriwal is or what he does, because that is completely irrelevant to the debate. The problem here is the actions of the government on all of this. Right? Number one. Number two, Twitter itself should have marked that, because that was a factually incorrect tweet.
So that's
remember, it is not the Singapore
media
variant, it is the India so-called India variant.
It's not manipulated media then.
I mean, forget manipulated media. They've got a COVID information warning. They should have put that COVID information warning out there. That was number two. Number three, Suhel made this point that this government sees smart people. I don't see who in this government is smart, because all I see is a bunch of Reese Witherspoons directly out of Legally Blonde in the government. Okay. He's like he said, they are brilliant at communication, but they are brilliant at communication to whom? They can communicate to a very lowest common denominator masses. They are incapable of the kind of sophistication of communication required for a higher level of intellect. You can get all the votes, you can get hundreds of millions of votes, but you can't change the intellectual narrative, which is where the narrative is set. All right, let's be very, very clear about that, because the people who are able to do that, people like Arun Jaitley, people like Sushma Swaraj, they are gone. Where is the new Arun Jaitley? Where is the new Sushma Swaraj? If you think you're replacing Arun Jaitley with somebody like Amitabh Kant, people laugh at Amitabh Kant to his face. And he doesn't even know that people are laughing at him, not with him.
Oh, he's been a fine officer, though. I mean, you can't take that away from him.
I'm sorry, Advaita.
So we're going to agree to disagree on this one. You know?
There is no way he's a fine officer by any stretch of the imagination. He's very fine at advertising. Well, we leave that to Suhel. He's much better at crafting the narrative for people. But anyway, so if you've lost leaders of that caliber, there is a huge gaping vacuum which you are not able to fill. You don't even want to fill that. Why? Because you're so paranoid that anybody that takes attention is a leadership material. They're going to challenge you for leadership. So you will not allow a new crop of leaders to come up. This is what you get.
Yeah. So there's a comment now,
a capacity vacuum, and this paranoia about a replacement leader.
So there's a comment for you, Abhijit, which it's a little harsh. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Please ask Abhijit to stop being a sanctimonious, abusive troll and instead provide a feasible solution to the problem at hand. This seems to be
a feasible solution. To bola hai na.
Let me
bola to hai. Enact the law. Throw Twitter's management in jail.
This seems to be a platform he has found to hurl invectives at the government. He has spoken a lot without saying anything. Ouch. That's harsh.
No, it's not harsh. It's fun. It's fun because whoever this bumpshit Panjandrum is, he's clearly being really hurt by the fact that his beloved leader is being mauled.
It's not a question of the beloved leader. It's just that even something that has to do with an appalling statement by an elected leader where he gets schooled by the foreign minister of a country, and you can still find a problem with the government.
Of course.
You find a problem with the government because they walked into the bloody trap.
Of course I'll find a problem. Is this the first time the government has messed up communication? Is this the first time? You tell me. Is this the first time that the government has walked into a trap not of its own making? Please remember, the most recent thing is the fake toolkit or this whole toolkit nonsense. To this day, the government couldn't marshal resources to tell us whether it was true or false. Then, and why will we not criticize? remember one thing, what Bicky Oberoi, the famous hotelier, always says.
I'm ex-Oberoi, I know.
Only when you care do you complain. We care for our country. We do not care for the politicians or whichever political party. We care for
that's exactly where
and we have every business to complain.
Well.
And currently the country is being run by Narendra Modi. If
No,
it was
but
run by
I
Tony
feel-
Blair, we would have abused Tony Blair.
But I
Who
actually
no.
feel it is coming
Who do
from-
you want us to blame? Do you want us to blame Rahul Gandhi? Is Rahul Gandhi running the country?
That is not what I'm saying.
Or is the government
at
absent?
all.
If the government is
At
absent, let's just
all.
pretend that there is no government. Anything
At
that doesn't
all.
make a difference,
But you-
because right now I can't see a prime minister operation.
You have to kind of hold someone to account for their words. But you all are not doing that. You are just going straight for Modi.
Not
That's
at all.
the
I
point.
said it. Arey, what are you saying? I said that Mr. Jaishankar, Dr. Jaishankar, should not have tweeted that response. He's a diplomat par excellence. He knows this field better than any one of us does. That was the first mistake. Number two, there are other ways that the MEA could have handled this, to my mind. Okay, there's no, some stupid people will tell you, oh, but we needed to retain our friendship with Singapore, blah, blah. Do you discuss everything in the public domain that you're discussing with
So
Singapore?
how do we know that the
basis?
government did not ask him to issue an apology on his own account? He's not done that at all.
So the government should have released the paper, should
You
have
know,
released the letter.
He should
One
have
minute.
ideally. he
If
should
I
have
was
just
the
taken
government,
it on his
hear
level.
me
and
out. If
said
I was the
sorry.
government, I wouldn't even drag Singapore into it. I would have written a letter from the MEA spokesperson
Exactly.
to show Arvind Kejriwal's auqat. And in that letter, I would have said, we have reference to this tweet of yours, blah, blah, blah. We, as government of India, want to say that this is not a Singapore variant. We hope you will clarify this, full stop. Now, if he doesn't clarify this, then you have a handle saying that, look, we sent him a letter, but he didn't respond. That's why we are bringing the public domain.
You have
Because
stepped-
there has to be strategy. These guys are trying to win wars by being tactical. You don't win a war by being tactical. You win a war by
Indirectly, you
being
are
smart.
No, but
saying
they're not
that
even being
Arvind
tactical, they're being
Kejriwal-
tactless.
Yeah.
Every issue that you land up at Modi's door, you forget that the original culprit is Arvind Kejriwal. That is the reason I pointed out his, level of politics, so people know that.
But sir,
What-
tell me,
as I said,
what is the
overplaying a
surprise about
particular
Arvind
person is not correct.
Kejriwal? Is there any surprise that Arvind Kejriwal is being Arvind Kejriwal?
No, people don't know. People don't. his
My
background.
thing
People
is that
don't
everybody
know
gets a
what
pass.
type of place.
Because for
Everybody gets a
people who expect statesmanship from Arvind Kejriwal is like that Jehovah's Witness at Taiwan who went into the lion's cage and started reciting the Bible in the hope that the lion won't come kill him. Why do that?
Look, let me tell you, Dr. Jaishankar and our Ministry of External Affairs across the world is celebrated. And it goes back to a long time. Our diplomatic prowess is well established. There are processes in place. I'm saying this habit of
This Twitter habit, which
this
you bring
Twitter
up a lot.
habit to immediately get onto Twitter or khatam kar do. Problems don't go away by you suggesting them or you answering on Twitter. All I'm saying is let them go back to processes. They're going too much into this whole Twitter war. That's
This
a
is
silly
actually,
war.
is this actually coming full circle? The reason why we can't take action on Twitter is probably because all our ministers are addicted to it.
I've said that so many times. Ask Abhijit. Most of the times I've tweeted saying poor ministers don't get any time to work. When they get up in the morning, they have to wish about 27 people happy birthday.
Exactly.
17 people are dead. So they've got to commiserate with their families. Then they've got to share videos of some oxygen train running. Then they've got to retweet all the functions that the Prime Minister is attending. Then they've got to talk about all the progress that India has made through articles which have been written by their own people. By the time it's midnight, where do they have time to work?
I have enjoyed this banter of Suhel every time, but to say that no minister is working, I think.
No, I'm not saying no.
You said they start with Twitter, they start giving greetings. They end
I
up
said
reading
most.
newspaper.
Nitin
That's not
Gadkari
correct.
works.
I've
Nitin
seen these
Gadkari
people
works.
working their asses off.
No, Nitin Gadkari works. I think between you and me, I think the Prime Minister works.
So let us be respectful. People are working. Let us say, okay, government did something correctly, but उसे कोई कुछ नहीं करता, खाली happy birthday करता है और condolence करता है.
कल से
तो इतना
कल से
नहीं
आप
सर,
ट्विटर देख लेना,
इतना नहीं, इतना
कितने
नहीं.
हैप्पी बर्थडे मैसेजेस आएंगे फ्रॉम विद इन द कैबिनेट. Now, Nadda ji today said we must have BJP, whatever, 7 years, welfare. Every cabinet minister has retweeted, everyone. So all I'm saying, Sharda ji, is we are here not to abuse any political party because I really don't care. We are here to say that our government represents our people. It represents us. It represents us domestically. More importantly, it represents internationally. Only because we care are we giving these solutions. I'm giving you solutions. I'm not highlighting a problem. Neither is Abhijit highlighting a problem. I'm telling you what needs to be done and what could have been done.
Okay, which brings me, like, we have about 7 minutes left. So I just want to discuss this very quickly because I've been following this a little closely. Is about the BBC and the Martin Bashir interview, panorama interview from 1995, which has now been exposed for Bashir and the BBC being aware of it, that he used some forged documents to attain that interview and to convince Princess Diana that she was in some sort of peril. And according to Prince Harry, who passed an official comment, he said that this added to her paranoia and really in the last couple of years of her life. So I just wanted quick comments from you all because the way
Advaita, before you get into that topic, since you
Mhm.
dropped Rajasthan topic, let me just tell you a very interesting thing. You talked about Rajasthan, vaccination of dead people, right?
Yes.
I tried to Google some information. You'll be surprised. You try whatever kind of sentence you put, there is no news at all through Google about people being certified as vaccinated who are dead now. Can you imagine the control? So we come to the first question, that even this can be managed by Congress, who is not in power. So the entire algorithm changes overnight, and news which you read in even Twitter or newspaper actually disappears.
It's gone. It's gone.
Just imagine.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Try to understand the power of these people, even though they are not fully in power. That is how they can control. And we cry here about narrative, Twitter,
but Sharda ji,
blah, blah, blah.
This should worry you. This should actually worry you and worry people in the government. If for 7 years they've been in power and they can't control this narrative, are you surprised that they can't do anything about other issues?
Suhel's point is that Congress could manipulate Google's algorithm to see to it that no news about Rajasthan vaccination comes in. That's the beauty.
तो सर उसका मतलब उनके पास अक्ल है ना, आपके पास अक्ल है और सत्ता भी है, फिर आप करिए, आपको किसने रोका है? You cannot win a war. You cannot win a war by saying that fellow is stronger. You're meant to win a war because you need to kill him. So I mean, they obviously have smarter people.
Yeah, because they've been able to bury that news. There's no doubt about that. And so much for Godi media and all of that.
Exactly.
The reality kind of points in that direction. But coming back to the BBC, Abhijit, do you recall this interview from back in the day? And
I remember this very well. Yeah. That was when I was completely glued to the TV and obsessed with Princess Diana.
What we all, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a homosexual, so I get free reign to be more obsessed than most people are with Princess Diana. So, again, I'm playing to a stereotype. Yes,
stereotype. You've been doing that all evening. Which, in fact, I do want to also ask you about Demi Lovato coming out as a non-binary.
I don't know who this Demi Lovato is, so I really
can't. So not in with the millennials anyway. Okay,
yes, sorry. I actually in winter I go off to Vienna to listen to the opera. I don't listen to all this low-grade shit. Anyway, getting back to what happened with Martin Bashir, I remember that interview, and I remember thinking, other than where she admits infidelity, there was nothing so earth-breaking in that interview. I was like waiting, something big is coming, something big is coming, something big is coming. Nothing happened. We knew even then that Martin Bashir had acquired the interview based on certain misleading, etc., etc. And mind you, this is the routine part of a journalist's job. You do what is required to get the interview. Right? So, for example, when I went to Afghanistan and interviewed Taliban, not knowing if I was going to come back alive or in a body bag or not even that maybe, you pretend saying, हाँ, आप बिल्कुल सही बोल रहे हैं, हिंदुस्तान बहुत खराब है, पाकिस्तान बहुत अच्छा है करके. You do what is necessary to get the story. Now, if this, I'm seeing the royal family level a lot of allegations now retrospectively at them. But we need to remember at that point, the marriage was already comprehensively broken beyond repair. There was no getting back together. She was already schizophrenic, paranoid by that point of time. And there was no coming back from the brink anymore. And by this time, they even knew that each other, both of them were having affairs. So it was just the public coup de grace that was delivered to the Prince of Wales that hurt him and led to the breakdown of the marriage, because it was never meant to be admitted publicly, because everybody knows that royalty have mistresses and boyfriends on the side. It's just never meant to be made public. So I'm not buying this whole... So I'm not buying this whole sob story of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, just like I don't buy Prince Harry and that gold digger wife of his is this.
Lovely.
So you just trust Suhel to enjoy these kind of comments. So we can do a discussion on them, because Harry's talking about his mental health yet again. But and you know, the thing is that the more he's doing it, the more it's annoying people and driving people away. And this is someone who was the most popular royal at one time. Abhijit, you know, just what about the BBC? I mean, this much storied reputation, and of course, you know, it's been a public broadcaster. What does this do for them? I mean, the fact that they were very much a part of this cover-up. Somebody in the BBC who went on to then head the BBC has been named in this, I think the name, it's the Dyson Commission or something of that sort, which has looked into it. What do you think of the BBC and its reputation post something like this? Because it's very rare that a senior royal will come out and actually speak this way about them. And as we know, the BBC has its own biases and has its own kind of issues.
Look, the BBC is, I don't know why people have decided that it is this sort of gold standard of credibility, because it never was. Even that famous Lily Borrero tune, when it was broadcasting to Germany saying this is London, it was purely a propaganda operation that Germans used to listen to just to get the other side of the news. It wasn't that it had credibility, they just wanted the exact opposite version of the story. I still remember during the 2003 invasion of Iraq, you know, Tim Sebastian was actually propagating absolute false news, putting people in the line of fire. He was claiming a revolt had broken out in Basra, that guns, I remember his exact actions, guns are being fired at 90-degree angle, straight directly as cannons into the crowd. It never happened. They were trying to incite a general revolt out there, which then turned out to be completely false. The BBC was complicit in trying to create human shields for the invading forces, of which Britain was one. If you remember in 1999, on the 23rd of April, when Radio TV Serbia was bombed by NATO forces, this same BBC supported that action, which killed Serbian radio and TV journalists. So for me, there is as much integrity in the BBC headquarters as there is in any red light area anywhere in the world. So if anybody considers them to be a credible news organization, I'm sorry, I have zero respect for them. I have zero belief in their credibility. But let's come to Harry. Okay, it is very important he's talking about mental health. The issue is, when you talk about things like mental health, you need to have a certain credibility. He's got zero credibility. This is a boy that was wearing a Nazi uniform, giving Nazi salutes and God knows what else. Got caught on TV. Caught on
TV, a young guy. I mean, you know, and a
really, I mean, growing up, I can understand an Indian doing it because we've only got one line about the killing of Jews.
That's true. That's true. And the royal family is like German ancestry. Yeah,
exactly. For a German ancestry, with all the baggage that accompanied his grandfather, that accompanied Mountbatten, that accompanied his uncle, King George, what was it, the 5th or 6th, or King Edward, who had to quit and
Edward.
Collaborated with the Nazis.
Yeah.
You know, he, of all people, I am not willing to accept that he did not know the gravity of what he was doing.
But not cancelled, by the way, huh? He
Of
hasn't
course, he
been
won't
cancelled.
be cancelled. He is now cancel proof because it doesn't matter how much he's lying. It doesn't matter how much of a hypocrite he is.
Hmm.
He comes purely from privilege and nothing else, and he's exploiting his privilege incidentally.
Hmm.
He's uncancelable today because he's chosen the right side. Only one side succeeds at cancelling because they have mob power behind them. If you don't accept with their cancelling, they'll come and burn cities down.
Which reminds me, Stephen King and Harry Potter's author J.K. Rowling are used to be friends, but now she's blocked him on Twitter because the whole trans woman issue. Once again, thank you everybody for joining me. And I just have one quick question. What was your top news of the week that you think is worth sharing? If anyone wants to put that out there.
I lost 1 kilo.
You lost 1 kilo. Okay. What about you, Ratan Sharda ji?
See, for me, the news was about, improving condition in Maharashtra and UP of COVID.
For you, Abhijit?
See, the news every week is the superiority of Bengali intellectual across the world. Everybody respect and seek blessings of Bengali intellectual.
Correct. কেটে যাচ্ছে কিন্তু রক্ত বেরোচ্ছে না।
হ্যাঁ, তাই। দারুণ বলেছেন।
On that note, I think we had a fiery weekend that was, or the Sunday Club, and we shall be back next week, hopefully, in good health. And I wish you all stay safe, stay healthy, and see you next week. Thank you so much.
See you all.
Well.
Bye.